السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوكل عليه. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ربنا زدنا علما، اللهم فقهنا في الدين، اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما. آمين يا رب العالمين. I welcome you all to our first lesson of Tajweed. We begin with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because whatever is started with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is blessing in it, and we make our intention sincere for His sake. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me tawfiq to teach you in the best manner, and give you tawfiq to take in the best manner, and be able to implement all the rules that you learn and improve your recitation and beautify it. When it comes to recitation of Quran, we learn from Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala advises us to recite it in the beautiful manner. وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. And when we go over the tafsir, we learn a few points about it, how to create tartil in the recitation of Quran. What kind of speed should we read in? It's a medium speed that we should read Quran in. We must read Quran in a way that we can understand, we can reflect on the words of Quran in the time pace, and we recite Quran in the best manner with a melody. Quran, and every surah of Quran has a beautiful melody in it, and Prophet ﷺ recited the Quran beautifully. And he advised to beautify the Quran with your tongue. And when we are reciting the Quran, we should make sure that it does not sound like poetry. And what are the 2 points mentioned in Tafsir is that there should be no undue haste. So you're reciting and then you are rushing through it. There should be no haste, because otherwise it will sound like poetry. And there should be no quick pauses. So for that, you need to train yourself, do breathing practice, and make proper pauses, plan where to pause and where not to pause. And this also changes the meaning if we pause at the wrong point. So this is a knowledge that must be learned and practiced, inshallah. Also, Quran must be recited in Arabic accent. So you cannot pick up Quran and recite in the Urdu accent or English accent. You should learn the proper Arabic accent of Arabic language in order to recite Quran beautifully, because then only you will be able to create tartil. Only then others will be able to understand what you're reciting as well. Also, pausing at its wonders and taking time to reflect on the ayats and taking implementation points for ourselves, and making dua as well. Before we begin learning all the Tajweed rules to improve our recitation, we should know a little bit about what is science of Tajweed. It was actually part of Qira'at. Qira'at were to begin with a science, and eventually as the time passed and there was need, then Tajweed rules were written, and it was to help the non-Arabs to pronounce Quran properly in the Arabic accent. So science of Tajweed came into being later. It wasn't present at the time of Prophet ﷺ. Yes, the knowledge was there. They recited and copied each other in recitation, and when the lots of non-Arabs joined, they accepted Islam. Then for their need, the rules were written by later scholars. And there are 10 qira'at, 10 ways of recitation that are allowed in Quran. And Hafs and Asim is just one recitation, and which is most commonly recited. And the rules that we follow, 95% of the people, or if you learn from a learned person, all the rules that you were taught, and this is the common recitation which is taught. And most of the people don't even know that we are learning from Imam Hafs, who was a student of Imam Asim. So this recitation that we are going over, the rules will be based on Hafs and Asim recitation throughout, inshallah. Books that you can use as a reference if you are a person who always need books and you feel lost if you don't have your written material with you. So there's a very good English book written by Ustaza Karima Carroll. It has very detailed tajweed rules. You can inshallah follow that. When I learned in tajweed in 2010 with Al Huda, this is the book we used. It's a very good comprehensive English book. If you do not want to buy a book, then there is abouttajweed.com. You can find topics of tajweed and you can take that as a supplementary text. You should have a copy of Quran. This should go without saying that you need to practice in order to implement the rules that you're learning. So you can have an app, but I would say stick with one mushaf of Quran. Even if it's written form, you have a copy of Quran or you want to use an app, always use that specific app in order to build up your recitation, inshallah. This really helps. And even for memorization as well, this helps. Before we go ahead and learn the rules, let's go over the manners of recitation of Quran. What should we be careful about when we are reciting Quran or whenever we are beginning a recitation? We should purify our body. We should make sure we are wearing clean clothes. The place we're sitting is clean. And we should take care of our oral hygiene. We know it's sunnah of Prophet ﷺ to do siwak with every wudu. So even if you cannot do it very frequently, then make sure that you do it at least twice in a day. Otherwise, it's recommended to do it with every wudu. And it's not mandatory to make wudu to begin the recitation of Quran, but it's very much liked. It's something recommended. So when you begin your recitation, you should try to always begin with wudu. So make wudu whenever you're starting to recite. Before you start recitation, then seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is also one of the manners, and we learn from Quran. فَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. So whenever we begin recitation, we should seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because it is the command in Quran. Avoid talking to people. Make sure you find a place which is kind of quiet. You're not interrupted in your recitation every now and then. So avoid talking in the middle. Presence of the heart when we are reciting Quran, because it's the purpose of Quran is guidance. So we should recite Quran with presence of the heart. Should not recite absent-mindedly. What we are reciting, we have no idea. So reflecting on the meaning is extremely important. So we should focus on the meaning, and the purpose is taking lessons for ourselves. For personal level, at a personal level, you're learning, you're implementing, only then you'll be able to benefit from Quran fully. And then pausing to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the verses that require praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or creates awe in the heart, and supplicating. So the ayats of punishment came, so you seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ayat of people of taqwa came, and you are asking for to acquire taqwa, to be made among those people who have taqwa. So making dua is extremely important, because one is our effort and the other is blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Something can only be achieved with two things. One, that we are putting in effort, and then we are also receiving a mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his help to achieve it. What is ista'adha and basmala? So this is the topic that we'll cover now. Ista'adha is a term used for the statement A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. So whenever we begin Quran, as I mentioned earlier, that we must seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the accursed shaitan. And the manner of ista'adha, saying ista'adha when you're reciting, it's a little bit different if you're reciting loudly or silently. So if you're reciting alone silently, then you should seek ista'adha as well. You should say ista'adha as well silently in the similar tone, level of voice that you're reciting Quran in. Then reading loudly. If you're reciting loudly and other people are listening, then say it out loud so other people can benefit from it as well. During the prayer, so if you're leading the prayer, doesn't matter if it's a Jahri Salah or Siri Salah, you're reciting out loud or quietly, you should say ista'adha quietly. And if your recitation is cut off due to coughing, sneezing, or you were discussing the verses of Quran, how we do it in the class setting, or two people are sitting and talking about Quran and this recite the ayah, you don't have to repeat isti'adha. But if the recitation was interrupted because of eating and talking to people for a matter other than Quran, just worldly talks, then isti'adha should be repeated. And that's the manner. What is basmala? Basmala is the short form that you say for saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So even if you say Bismillah, you have said Bismillah, but the full statement is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And when we are starting any surah of Quran, we must say Bismillah. We must say Bismillah, except Surah At-Tawbah. And if you have noticed, then there is no written Basmala before Surah At-Tawbah. And it's because of its first verse is disassociation. It shows anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the disbelievers, for the disbelievers. So it's not recommended to say Bismillah before beginning Surah At-Tawbah. However, when you're starting any surah from the middle, so you're about to begin your recitation and you said isti'adha, but because you started a juz and it doesn't start with the beginning of a surah, you have an option. You can either say Bismillah or not say Bismillah, because it's a choice. But before the beginning of every surah, except Surah Tawbah, you must say Bismillah. How to say, there are 4 allowed ways of saying Ista'adha, Bismillah, and beginning of the surah. So inshallah, we'll go over all 4, how you can recite. First one is that you separate them all like this. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. Or you can join them all together. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. And the third way is when you join Ista'adha with Basmala and separate it from the surah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. And the fourth way is when you separate Ista'aza from Basmala and join Basmala with the surah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. So these are the 4 allowed ways to say Ista'aza, Bismillah, and the beginning of the surah. What happens when you are continue reciting and you go from one surah to another and you recite Basmala? There are 3 allowed ways of joining or separating, but then there is one way that should not be done at all. Inshallah, I'll mention that as well. So the first one that is allowed is that you separate them all, like most commonly we all do. وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدَ بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس. And then you join them all. ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس. And the third allowed way is that you stop at the end of the surah and then you join Basmala with the next surah. ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس. And the last thing that must not be done, one way that should not be done, is that you join the ending of the surah with basmala. So you don't take a pause, you don't take a breath there at the end of a surah and you say basmala, and then you take a pause and recite the next surah, begin the next surah. This is disliked and it should not be done. When it comes to the level of recitation of Quran, there are three levels. First one is tahqiq, and this is the very slow form of recitation. If you remember, if you have listened to my previous video, I told you that there are mujawwid recitations on tanzil.net that you can follow in order to improve your recitation. So tahqiq, we can say, is a very, very slow recitation. It's taking care of all the rules of tajweed. The reciter is making sure that they are pronouncing every letter from its articulation point. Also, they are implementing all the sifat of all the letters and applying all of the tajweed rules that are there. And they're going very, very slow so that they are not making any mistake. And the purpose is teaching as well for the new students to learn from it. So tahqiq could be a mujawwad recitation, and it's recited like this if you haven't listened to it. So let's go over how could it be. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So if you notice, every letter is getting extra time and every pull of the mud will be extra long. So this recitation is very slow and it will have longest timing as compared to all other recitations, because the purpose is making every tajweed rule clear for the student to learn from. And the most common recitation you will find is the medium paced recitation, which is called tadbir. You don't have to memorize these terms, but these terms are out there. So medium paced recitation is called tadbir, and this is the most common recitation that you will find. And this is the recitation which is extremely important for tartil as well. So this should be our way of recitation for our daily recitation when we are reciting. Unless you are a student and you're learning and you're slowing down to improve your tajweed, you can definitely slow down in the beginning. But eventually, when you have applied the tajweed rules and it's been a year or two, you have been working on it, then you should pick up your pace and improve your recitation to a little bit faster pace, which would be kind of medium, not too fast, not too slow. So it could be like Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. And the third speed of recitation is Hadr, which goes really fast. And most of the times it is adopted by people who recite a lot of Quran in a day. Imagine the minimum days somebody can finish Quran, they're allowed to finish Quran is 3 days. So someone who is doing that, imagine they're reading 10 juz in a day. So they will go fast. And Hufaz as well. When they are reviewing their Quran, they are reciting a lot of it, they're repeating a lot. So they're allowed to go faster. But whenever we are going faster, we must make sure that we are not overdoing it. We're not missing out on pronouncing the letters correctly, or their sounds incomplete, or not applying tajweed rules. Yes, the timing will go short for mud and the letters as well as compared to tadbir, but we must make sure that we are reciting every letter clearly. It's still understandable. We are not distorting the words of Quran when we go fast. So it could be faster like this. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahmanir Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin. So it could be faster, but not while taking care of not distorting the letters at all. And the tartil should be inclusive in all three levels, because we should focus on the meaning. Even when we are trying to improve our tajweed, we should focus on the meaning as well. And we should focus on pronouncing it correctly together. So tartil should be adopted in all three levels, no matter what the purpose is. The main purpose of Quran is guidance, and it should never be ignored. Al-lahan is just a term used for making mistakes. And this will show us why should we learn tajweed to begin with. Lahn al-Jali are the obvious mistakes that are made that change the meaning of Quran. For example, you change the fatha into a dhamma or a kasra, and especially at the end of the words, and it changes the meaning altogether of the verses. Or you change the haraka and it changes the word and it changes the meaning. So that mistake should not be made, and anyone can fix it. But for makharij, if your the, your za, your law, and your dad letter, they're all za, they all sound like za, because some cultures they cannot differentiate. It wasn't differentiated in their language, so they do not learn proper tajweed of Arabic language. They don't learn proper accent, and they keep reading Quran with the same accent of their own language, which is wrong, because it would change the meaning. Dhalla will become Dhalla will become Dhalla, and they change the meaning completely. So tajweed must be learned in order to eliminate those mistakes, because we learned, Imam Jazari said that one who recites Quran without tajweed, then he is sinning. So this is what he meant, but that if you change the meaning of Quran, the words of Quran, then you are sinning, because you're saying something wrong, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not intend altogether. So Lahn al-Jali are the mistakes that must be eliminated. Lahn al-Khafi are the mistakes that are like, your fatha sound is very close to your dhamma, or your dhamma sound is close to fatha, or your kasra sound is close to, it's kind of in the middle of the sound of fatha. We'll inshallah go over itmam al-harakats before doing makharij, so we can go over what's the proper sounds of every haraka and how to say it properly. So our kasra is not, it should be an e sound. Lillahi is not lillahi, because that he sound is kind of in the middle sound of fatha and kasra. That's why it's very important that we learn the proper sound of kasra and adopt it and implement in our recitation. The first step that you should implement, besides all these rules that we learned, that how to, what are the etiquettes and how to say isti'adha and basmala, then this is something as a first step for you as a new reciter, no matter what level you begin at. In order to create your recitation fluency, this is what you should do. First of all, you should do breathing practice. You should take a deep breath in and hold it in, sit upright, so you can inhale more oxygen in your lungs, and then hold it in as long as you can hold it, and then slowly let it exhale without inhaling. So see how long you can hold your breath in. This will help you in reciting longer chunks of Quran. Remember, in order to eliminate our recitation sounding like poetry, it's very important that we do not, take abrupt pauses, and there's no undue haste. So you recite calmly, but then you are also reciting in a manner that you're not stopping at the wrong places. So even if you're a very beginner learning Quran, then you're saying one word or two words together, make sure that you increase your pace. You say 3 or 4 words together. And one thing here you're supposed to do is that when you stop at any word, then drop the last haraka. Like all of you have learned how to drop the last haraka at the end of an ayah. We have learned that when you started learning Quran recitation, then you learned how to drop the last haraka. Similarly, start adopting it in a way that wherever you lose your breath, your ability to continue, then you drop the last haraka. If there's no last haraka, then there's no dropping, but you already know this because you have been applying it at the end of every ayah. But now start applying that also when you lose your breath. So for example, you're only doing 3 or 4 words, you will stop like this: Alhamdulillah alladhi anzal. So you drop the fatha of lam, but then you begin with anzala ala abdihi al-kitab. Then you drop the haraka of ba, then you begin with ba. If you don't know what haraka to place, you can say al-kitaba. All alif lam take this hamzatul wasl takes fatha. But if you don't know, then begin with the word that you know what the haraka is there. Abdihi al-kitaba wa lam yaj'al lahu iwaja. So you stop in a manner that you do not disrupt the meaning of Quran. So what happens, I have heard people reciting in a way that They say a word or two and then they continue reading, and then they're breathing in the middle. From now on, do not breathe in the middle. So this is the first step in order to create fluent recitation, that you do not lose your breath in the middle of recitation. So when gauge your breathing, know when you're about to lose your stamina, then drop the last haraka and stop at the word and begin with that word again, or two words again, and then create flow. And within a week, you will see, when you practice seriously and every day, you will see within a week or two, you will be able to recite bigger chunks. And your goal is to at least recite one line in one breath to begin with. Even if it's half in the middle, that's okay. If you're an elderly person and you're not able to implement it fully yet. But this is the first step towards creating fluent recitation of Quran. So this is your homework. This is what you're going to do, inshallah, along with adopting all the manners that we learned today. Jazakumullahu khairan kathira. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to implement all that we learn and accept our efforts, and give us tawfiq to learn more. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.